Hello and welcome back to Northwestern Models TV, and today we're going to put together the North Eastern Railway water column from Skytrex. So let's get started. So as with all the Skytrex kits, it's come in the usual packet, which should open up relatively easily. Get all the parts out of the bag, and you want to. There we go. So yeah, so make sure you got all the parts out, which is easy enough to do. Now we've got a large instruction sheet, I think, or at least a large picture. Yes, so we've got the main instruction sheet, which shows you two pictures of how the water column should look when it's finished. And on the back side there's basic assembly instructions, which is more or less put it together, dry run first, make sure everything's all clean and tidy and stick together. So generally you end up using the pictures as a guide more than any direct instructions, which is quite typical of these water column kits. If you've seen the other two videos, you'll hopefully see that. So what have we got in the kit? Well, we've got a number of white metal parts, we've got a resin base, and we've got a small bag with some smaller components in as well, which again look like a bit of a mix of white metal, and there is a small length of chain in there as well. So I'm going to leave those bits in there for now, because I think we're going to need those later on. So first thing I'll do is I'll start cleaning up these main parts of the column, which is obviously the main column itself, the top bar which goes across the top, and the water bag. So I'll get those cleaned up, and we can and the base as well, and we'll see about getting these bits assembled first. Right, well, I've cleaned up the four main parts to this northeastern column. So we've obviously got the base, the main column itself, which should hopefully fit in there, water at the top of the column, which will go on there somehow, and then the bag, which will fit on the end. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is to get the main column to fit nicely into the base, because that way we've got a nice solid base to work from. It makes it a lot easier to deal with, so we'll do that first. So what I'm going to do is just file off a little bit around off the actual pin and off the side of the base as well, just to make sure it's level. There's nothing stopping it from sitting down nice and flat, or as flat as possible at least. But also by filing it, gives us something decent for the glue to stick to as well. And with it being white metal, it does file down quite quickly and quite easily. So yeah, so that'll fit on there quite happily. So the glue that we're going to use is the Rocket Rapid super glue from Deluxe Materials. It is ideal for white metal because it does stick together really well and really quickly, because this will bond in between 5 and 10 seconds. So you don't have a little bit of play time with it, but not a lot. So it's an ideal glue to use, and obviously with this being a multimedia kit, that meaning that we're using white metal and resin, so we're using different materials. Super glue is ideal for that. So put a bit of glue around the base on the resin, and then I'll just line the column up so it's nice and square to where it should be, and hopefully nice and straight as well and vertical. And we'll just leave that for a couple of seconds for it to go off, and then that'll be the main base sorted out. So obviously the next piece is then going to be this top crossbar, which should fit in to the hole in the top of the column, but on this one it does seem a little bit, the locating pin does seem a little bit long, so I'm going to cut quite a bit. I'm going to cut that in half. I'm going to cut quite a bit off it with the modelling cutters. So I've trimmed that right down, so that should now sit in there a lot better, so it's not wobbling around so much. But again, I'm just going to go around with the file and just give it a bit of a tidy up, especially as we've just cut it. Again, because it's, you know, then giving it a tidy up, it gives the glue something to grip into as well, so it creates a stronger and better bond with it. And again, I'll just do the very top of the column, which, as you can see, has now attached to the base quite happily. So let's just double check the top, and that's going to sit on there quite happily. So we can glue that piece on, and I'll glue the top of the column because that's just going to hold steady, and then we can place the cross piece on the top, and again just make sure it's lined up before the glue goes off. So that won't take too long to set now. So the last piece to go on is the water bag. Now these generally do always seem to end up having sprue on them far too long. They don't generally end up fitting in the end. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and this is just not going to happen. So I'm just going to cut that sprue right back to the first little marker on there. Just clean that up. So it's all sorted. So then that'll stick to the bottom of there quite happily, and we can line it up quite nicely as well with the main pipework that's going across. So we'll put glue on the end of the bag this time, because we're just going to line it all up and then just push up to it and just hold it in place. It's easier to glue to a surface that's not got gravity going to it than it is upside down. And hopefully, there we are. We've got the water column. You can hopefully see it a bit better now, with the bag on the end of it. So that's the main lump of it sorted. So the next job is to go through this little bag that was in there. This is the smaller components, and when I can eventually get in it, in here we should have, that's everything out of there. We've got a little grid, we've got some chain as well. I know what the chain's going to be for. We've got what looks like a water valve type thing, and we've also got what looks like a little stand for the chain to link to, because what the chain will do is it'll attach to the top of the column around here somewhere at the top of right at the top of the bag, so that the loco crew can pull on the chain to pull the column round to fill up the steam locomotive. And as well as that, we also have this little column tube thing as well, which is for the valve, the water valve, to operate the column. So I'm going to clean these few bits up, which won't take too long, and then we'll see about assembling some of the bits together. Right, so I've now cleaned up the 4 components, put the chain there as well. So the first one is the little column. And that is, if we look at the picture again, that makes up part of the valve for the to actually work the water column. And we can see that the other piece that goes in is a little handle which we're going to need to cut down to make it fit in a lot better. So first of all, I want to make sure that the main column itself fits in to or onto the base, which it actually doesn't because the hole's not quite big enough. So what I'm going to do to make life easy for myself, instead of trying to file the end of this down to the right diameter, which will just take forever, or to drill that out, which is very difficult because the column is now in the way, I'm just going to cut the end off and file it flat so that it's got so it's going to sit down nice and flat, and we'll just glue it in place. So cut the end off, go in with the file, get it down nice and flat, or as flat as it wants to go. There we are, so that'll hopefully sit on there without too much fuss. There we are. So that's going to sit on there quite happily, which hopefully you can see. Put my hand behind it. There we go. And then obviously the valve will fit in the top. Now it does need cutting down because it is far too long at the moment. So let's again just trim that down. So we've got a little bit of it standing up, but not too much. Obviously I've not glued the column in place yet, and that'll fit in now, so that's going to fit in quite nicely together. So let's glue all that down. Remembering to get it in line as quickly as possible because the glue does set quite quickly. Now with the actual valve, it doesn't actually matter if you get it, in a particular line or direction or anything, because it's just the the position that it eventually lands in can be the position that it needs to be in. It's not critical to sort of say, okay, well when the column's in this position it should be directly in line with it or anything. There's nothing in the rule books to say it should be anything like that, but I am going to make it so that it sits, hopefully, in sort of line with it, just to make it a little bit more obvious when it's on the display stands at the exhibitions. I'm just going to hold it for a minute or so, and hopefully the glue will grab it relatively quickly. If not, we can always put some more on. There we go, that's got it. So that in essence is that part of the column made up, so I'll put that to one side to dry off. Now the other parts, we've got a little grid, a little stand with a hook on it, and obviously the chain. Now we know that the chain needs to loop around the top of the column up here, right at the top of the bag, and it then goes down to this little stand with the hook on, and obviously the grid needs to go underneath the water bag. And the base is not long enough, so obviously if this is going to be on your platform, on your model railway, then there's no problem. But for the purposes of what we're going to be using it for, I'm going to make up a base out of some plastic card quite quickly, using the same width as the current base of the main column, so it all fits together, and we've then just got something suitable that it's all going to fit on quite nicely together. have something we can use there. There we are. And we want it that long then. I'm not measuring this out massively accurately because I don't need to. But it's just going to, like I say, it's literally just going to be as a nice little base for everything to just sit on for this particular model. And the other piece will probably come useful for another kit or something, so let's give that a quick tidy up. Make it look a little bit better. The vast majority of this will be underneath the main column base, because that's what we're going to do first. We're going to fix the main column to our new base. Just make sure that everything does still fit underneath it, which it does. So that'll go on there, and then this bracket will go around one side or the other, possibly around the back here. We'll make it all up like that. So let's get the base stuck down first. So I'll just glue on the bottom of the column base. That tells us where we need to glue, and then very quickly flip it over, line it up and drop it onto the plastic card, making sure it's on there. Let's give it a little press down. If I wanted to, I could probably put a peg on it or two, but I don't think we're going to need to. It's just going to hold it there. The weight of the column will hold it where it needs holding anyway, so that's no real problem. Get that out of the way. So that's now on there. So I'm going to do the exact same with the little grid. Put a blob of glue on the bottom of it, and then line it up underneath the bag. Get it there, and it should, by its own weight, end up held in place with any luck. And if not, we can always put a little bit more glue on, which I think I will actually. We'll put a little bit more glue on that, just to help it. Won't do it any harm. So that's the grid in place. So I'm just going to leave that for a minute whilst we look at the chain. So the kit comes with a length of chain, which you may or may not really be able to see there. And all I'm going to do is to loop this right around at the very top and then leave the end free, because then it will dangle down to see if we can put some plastic out behind so you can see. So that you can see, so it's going to go onto that little stand which I was mentioning. We can then just glue it onto the stand once we've got the stand glued onto the base, which actually I might do first. Yeah, I think I'll do that first. I'll glue the stand onto the base first, so then that's all that bit done, and it can then just be looped onto it. So let's put a little bit of glue on the bottom and the quarter, and I'm just going to actually pull it right up to the base of the resin base where the column is. That's it's just going to give it another surface for the glue to stick to make it a little bit stronger. So you might just be able to see that it's right there, just behind it there. So it's nice and safe there. It's not really going to go anywhere, I don't think. But obviously time will tell. So now that everything is stuck in place, we have literally just got this bit of chain to do. So I'm going to just put a little bit of glue around the back here, and then very carefully drape the chain onto it where I want it, which is going to be right down a little bit lower. He says as he then glues himself together to it. This may take a little while. This is quite fiddly, and the chain just wants to stick to everything, but what I want it to stick to at the moment. So let's try again. I think it is a case of once it's in position, I'm going to leave that for a minute. Now it's in position where I want it, and then once the glue's gone off a little bit, I'll be able to bend the chain around and bring it down with any luck to where I want it to go. Drat. As you guessed, the chain just came off then. Yes, we'll leave that for a minute. And in the process of doing that, I've actually knocked the handle off the valve, so I'll stick that back on once we've got this chain sorted out as well. It is determined not to stick on there, which is a bit annoying. Let's take the handle off so it doesn't get lost. I think as you end up with so much glue around it that it just doesn't want to go. sometimes the simplest thing in the model railway world can turn out to be one of the most awkward things to do. Like fitting this little bit of chain on. All I want it to do is quite literally just go on there and behave itself. I think I might finally have got it, so I'm now going to attempt to glue the other end onto the little stand that's next to it. Like so. So there we are, so bring the car back. Hopefully you'll be able to see that we've now got a nice little bit of chain coming down just onto the stand at the back. So without disturbing that, I'm now going to reattach the valve handle, which is obviously a delicate part of the kit which is possibly going to get damaged quite a few times, I think, and once that's on, that will be the kit completed at last. So there we are. That's the North Eastern Railway's water crane kit from Skytrex. It's a lovely kit to make up, it's nice and simple. The only tricky part was the chain, as you saw, but it's gone on now and I'm quite happy with that. So there we are. All that it needs now is some paints. With being white metal, you will need a base coat before you get the proper colours on, and for North East I think it'll probably be maroon and cream sort of colours, but again just look at photographs to get the right colours and you'll probably be alright. So there we go, that's how to build the Skytrex North Eastern Railway's water crane. It's a lovely simple kit, goes together well and is ideal for anybody who's modelling the North Eastern Railway. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you have, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a like, and please do hit the subscribe button as well. So until next time, happy modelling.